Okay, this is the third event in Green Economy Peterborough's Green Business Basics series. Our goal is to educate local organizations on topics around sustainability. You can stay in the loop on Green Economy Peterborough news and events by signing up for our e-newsletter. See the chat for the link. Jackie will throw it in there. Through our newsletter, we focus on all things green business here in Peterborough and the Kawarthas. So for the new faces here today, Green Economy Peterborough is a local program and network that helps member businesses to identify, set and achieve sustainability goals while improving their bottom line. Through coaching, educational opportunities, peer networking, and events, Green Economy Peterborough helps members to make reductions in emissions, water, and waste, and engage in other sustainable practices. We are also proud to be a project of Green Up and one of many other green economy hubs in the broader network supported by Green Economy Canada, a national nonprofit dedicated to accelerating the business transition to a vibrant and inclusive net zero future. We're also grateful, we're all here, thanks to the support of TD, who generously sponsor green economy hubs across the network. We're able to do this work with the support of our sponsors, our partners, and our membership. Several of our member organizations are here today. Trying to see who I can see. Jackie, you want to say hello to any of our members?
Yeah, I see Christy. Hi, Christy from Let Architects.
Christy's here. Awesome.
And I saw Leslie Robb.
Yep. And of course, we have James Byrne here, who's a partner at the city. Lovely to see you all. Hard to see everybody. Perfect. We have 22 members currently. We have a couple more coming in this week that are going to be announced soon. Very excited. What we've heard from our members is that they often lack the time and capacity to do the research and seek out opportunities or programs that are available to them, let alone like those that connect to their goals, their reduction goals. So this is exactly why we put together information-packed events like this to highlight ideas that can benefit businesses here in Peterborough and the Kawarthas. So why do this work? Why do businesses do this work? For a long time, businesses that worked to reduce waste did so because they felt like it was the right thing to do, had environmental benefits, and their values wanted to commit to that. Thankfully today, there are also other strong business benefits associated with taking action in this area. And I wanted to quickly highlight a few examples to make the case for looking at waste reduction as a way to benefit your organization over the long term. Number one, always first priority, saving money. Your business can absolutely save money by using better waste management techniques. For example, you can reduce costs for managing, transporting, and handling your waste. You can spend less on buying goods and materials that are going to end up as waste. You can reduce the tipping fees that you pay by reducing the amount of waste you send to landfill. So especially year over year, looking at reducing waste can pay off, not just as a one-off piece of savings, but year over year, you can save money. And it's very little to no capital investment for some businesses to do this. I know that Laurie is going to speak to the latest on this, but businesses in Ontario face changing regulations and obligations related to waste on an ongoing basis. Adopting better waste practices makes it easier to comply with existing regulations and enables you to be better prepared for that new legislation that comes in. Failing to manage environmental risks can also be a major risk factor for businesses. You might experience damage to your reputation, disruption to your business, or even get fined depending on how things go. Waste reduction is also a wonderful opportunity to engage customers, employees, and potential investors who are becoming more and more aware of sustainability. We talk about those millennial employees, engaging and retaining those employees, and waste management is a really relatively low cost way to get folks engaged in sustainability at your organization. Last but not least, brand enhancement. Clients, customers, and other stakeholders are now seeking out businesses that highlight their sustainability practices. So being recognized by customers as a champion of waste reduction can absolutely increase your sales and raise your profile. Importantly, marketing those environmental values can help companies to find new values-aligned customers and to showcase your business as a leader within the business community. So those are the many reasons why organizations can and should take action on waste. And I'm ready to turn it over to our guest speakers today who will help us determine how to do that, how to better reduce, reuse, and recycle as they share opportunities that can benefit local businesses. First up, we have Laurie Westaway. Laurie is the lead consultant at Wasteaway. She will speak to us on the importance of waste reduction and how to measure and reduce waste at your organization. Following Laurie, we will hear from Alec Cooley of Busch Systems, who will share best practices and innovative solutions to waste reduction for businesses. And after Alec, we'll speak with Scott Anderson of Chop Value, an innovative and new local business manufacturing fine wood products out of reclaimed chopsticks. And with that, please give a warm welcome to Laurie Westaway. Working in the environmental field for over 20 years, Laurie guided the successful implementation of waste, water, and energy projects for organizations and municipalities. In 2005, Laurie established her own waste management business, Wasteaway, founded to identify, develop, and implement waste minimization programs. Wasteaway grew from Laurie's desire to provide cost-effective professional services in order to incite and inspire action in waste reduction. Laurie has taught waste management at Fleming College and Trent University. Welcome, Laurie.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, everybody. Wonderful to be here and talking with you all about, obviously my favorite topic in the world. Today, quickly, just a quick brief overview on legislative framework. Why do waste audits? It's really beneficial for you to know what is in your waste systems and what is in your facilities and what is in your businesses before you can actually implement those awesome systems, which may be different in different places of your facilities. Some procedures that typically are involved in waste audits, some waste audit types, because not everything is just go dig in the garbage. Everybody produces waste. There's always opportunities. Right now, the movement is we're shifting from trash to value. We're changing the linear economic of the limit of take, make, and dispose to a circular economy where products and packages are designed and produced and considered for their end of life. So legislatively, waste and waste diversion are impacted by regulations on all three levels of government, federal, provincial, and municipal. Waste management in Canada is primarily regulated by the provinces, and regulations are focused on two areas, residential and the IC&I sector, industrial, commercial, and institutional. Residential waste are mandated by the provincial government, but are carried out by local municipalities, and that's why different municipalities offer different services. So they develop their own waste management programs, which can include different types of curbside collection, depot drop-off, pay-as-you-throw, clear bags, different policies and bylaws associated with waste. As long as those programs are in compliance with the Environmental Protection Act, then those are the way those systems run. Members of the business community are individually typically responsible for complying with waste-related regulations. And your compliance is typically determined by your size. And these are the three big IC&I related Ontario regulations, if you're not familiar with them. The 10294, which is waste audits and waste reduction, 10394, which is source separation requirements for different sizes of businesses, and Regulation 104 is packaging audits for different types of producers of packaging. So the recent introduction of stewardship or extended producer or producer responsibility programs currently is changing the responsibilities of businesses so that the producers of products and/or packaging are increasing their mandate to take physical and financial responsibility for waste and products that they produce. And municipalities are trying to balance out what they are able to offer to residents, what they are offering to IC&I, and there's still a lot of challenges and questions about how that is going to look in the future. In the Peterborough area, so Peterborough and Peterborough County, the blue box itself is going to be transitioning to full producer responsibility in 2024. So there's still some time, and the city and the county are both figuring out how that is going to look. In the future organics, there is a plan and some guidelines that there may be a future ban of organics from landfills. So that will create some challenges and opportunities for organics. So that's all your compostable stuff. So that's generally what's going on with respect to legislation. Here's just kind of this is a table from one of the regulations from the source separation regulation about, the different sizes of sources of multi-residential. This is applicable to buildings with 6 or more units, educational institutions of over 350 persons. So these are the legal requirements that they actually have to have these types of systems for waste diversion in their establishment. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that if that's of interest to you. So that's on the Ontario Regulation 103-90.
I think we got cut off on what are the benefits. The first one being specific information, getting baseline composition information, what's coming into your facility, what people are generating, how that's changing over time. Allows you the identification of different opportunities that could actually help you lead to reduction or find alternatives for things that you're producing a lot of, which could ultimately lead to savings of money or reducing toxicity of different things that are in your system. Compliance, you may be legally required to actually implement a waste audit program, depending on your size. Again, it is always good corporate citizenship to know what's going on in your waste. And sometimes it can cost a lot, and sometimes it can be done internally, and it's a great, well, it's not always a great motivator for employees, but it's certainly educational for people to know what's going on within in the facilities that they're working for, which actually ultimately helps you build understanding of your waste management systems and what an effective waste management system looks like. What are some of the challenges? Sampling, getting the right and representative sample for what's going on. Different things happen in different businesses throughout different times of the year. That's the same also in municipalities, different seasons, people eat different things in different ways throughout the year. So it's really sometimes very challenging to get what a representative sampling of what is actually happening in your business. Doing some logistical stuff, getting staff support, coordinating, getting people involved, coordinating some maintenance people, and also just finding out where everything is can sometimes also be very challenging. The logistics of this stuff can be hard. Cost, most waste audits can be done internally, but sometimes it can be cost prohibitive if you have to hire consultants and such. They can be quite expensive sometimes not, depending on who you talk to. And change, obviously, when you're looking for information and you find it, then often that may mean change, and that can be very challenging for lots of organizations. So it's beneficial to communicate from the beginning and all the way through the process so that everybody knows what's going on and why, so that when items are identified and you keep everybody involved, then the change is not so dramatic. So can I have the next slide, please?
Yep.
So I just wanted to give you an example. This was great for a study based on over 100 waste audits of commercial office buildings. So just office buildings revealed that 77% of what's usually thrown out in the trash is actually recyclable, and that's not dissimilar to what Alec was saying in his presentation, where when people don't have the appropriate services or locations, or it's not convenient, or it's not colored, or it's not simple, that most people will just go for what I like to call is just the nearest available hole, and they just throw it wherever. They don't really, if it's not really mindless, then they'll just throw it in the nearest available hole. So with that, a typical office has lots of opportunities for diversion with 34% organics, 23% paper, 19% glass metal, 1% e-waste, and generally roughs out to being 23% non-recyclable materials. So how do you know what's in your trash? You don't really know, and the only way to find out is actually to do a waste audit. So next slide, please.
Got it.
So there's different types of waste audits you can actually dig in the garbage, which I prefer to do. You could actually gather a bunch of people that have very similar businesses and do a similar study analysis, whereby you say, okay, well, your business is the same as mine. You have 100 people. I have 50 people will adjust this, that, and the other thing, and we'll make it cheap and easy. So that's one way to do it. You can dig into the garbage itself. So those are composition audits. You can take just a look at what's coming in from inbound materials, from suppliers and things. So you can just do an audit of things that are entering your building. And that could be even from, suppliers, but even from employees, like what are they bringing in to eat and how is that being disposed of? And then you can also just look at what's ending up in the garbage bin itself, and do some analysis on that. So the different types of audits available, some are a lot less expensive, some are more cooperative in nature, and also that makes it less expensive to do as well. Next slide, please. So generally, procedures for setting up a waste audit is that, as I mentioned previously, that they need to be pretty representative. So is it 24 hours? Is it 7 days? Is it 2 weeks? What will be the best representation of what happens in your business? And what you also want to do is look at the entire system. So you want to look at what's happening with reuse, what's happening in diversion, what's happening in cost. And often somebody who's got an eye for waste will wander around and just talk a lot to people and look into a lot of bins. As Alec and I were talking about before, it's very hard for us not to wander around and look in people's bins and see what's going on and talk to people about garbage. It's like when your eye is on it, it's like the filter of garbage, but it's really important to look at existing systems and in all manners of waste, because lots of things happen. Like you could have one person that would be just taking electronic waste home with them because they know that there's a place for it, and you didn't know that was happening in your business. What is happening for training? And that's how, from a health and safety perspective, from a material identification perspective, from policies within your organization. Do you have green procurement policies? Just from a paperwork and from a engagement with employees, what is happening with waste is an important thing to review, and how material. So then when you're doing a waste audit, you want to do material collection. You label it typically kind of by area and by address and function. So you say, this is the women's garbage from the bathroom. This is the garbage from the kitchen 1, upper level, lower level, or this is the public outside bin, that sort of thing, so that you typically sort it by kind of area, address, and function, so that you can separate, office from public, from inside a manufacturing facility, that sort of thing. And then obviously you do some physical sorting, then you do some data analysis and reporting. What you're looking at is all the waste streams. You're looking at garbage, you're looking at recycling, looking at organics, you're looking at other things. You're trying to find kind of those things that are happening in your facility that you may not even know that are beneficial, because there's often lots of people that are good Samaritans that are doing all sorts of interesting things that you should actually be encouraging. My brother works for Mercedes-Benz in New Zealand, and he collects, batteries and things like that, and styrofoam, and then he just kept it. He's in the parts department, and he kept it in the back room. And one day he just kind of came back and said, okay, I have a lot of styrofoam now. I have a place I can take it. Are you willing to pay for it? And they're like, I didn't realize we could do that. Okay, let's do it, right? So there's lots of things that potentially could be happening that you don't even know about until you start talking to people about it. Next slide, please. So we're on calculations, am I?
Yep.
Right. So ultimately what you want to try to do is, by the different areas in your facility, if that's what you're looking at, is you're going to try to get a total generation rate. So you're looking at total kilograms of waste per day or per week by all the different streams, by recycling, by organics, by sand. Who knows what other things may exist within your facility. And then you want to look at it and go, okay, so what's missing here? What am I not seeing that I expected to see? And then you also want to calculate what a diversion rate is, which is the percentage, is considered a percentage. And that's the total amount of diverted material. So that's materials that you're actually not sending to landfill, that you're recycling, that you're composting, that you're taking to a depot, that you are selling to a reuse area, that you're giving your chopsticks to for reuse into different products, and you want to divide that by the total all waste to come up with a percentage, and that gives you a diversion rate. And then you can also try to figure out reuse rates or reduction rates depending on where you're at, and if you have one audit at a different time and year over year, then you can start to play around. Like the more data you have, the more you can add to the calculations and the data analysis that you can do. But also just keep an eye for the things that you may not, you may do things like large article reuse, where you reuse desks within the facility, or you exchange, or you take furniture to the reuse store in town, or you may take construction and demolitions materials to recycling at the landfill, and that should be considered as a part of your diversion and reuse rate. Next slide, please. So this is just your how to calculate that, and we can provide that. I think you kind of get the idea. I just wanted to give the actual calculation. So next slide thing, please. Waste materials. So what you're looking for in the garbage is you're looking for recyclables, you're looking for hazardous materials. You don't want that in your garbage. Organics and other opportunities. I was working with my students at Trent, and we did, and I know one of your members is Peterborough Golf and Country Club, and we did a waste audit for them as a part of a project for the students, which is another great way to do it from a learning perspective. And one of the things that we found was a lot of paper towel. And so we were trying to figure out, well, is that more environmental than, and should we compost it instead of, or should we get hand dryers? So there was a lot of research that the students did on that type of thing. So other opportunities, but you wouldn't necessarily know that unless you looked at the inbound. If you did an inbound audit and you bought a lot of napkins or a lot of hand drying towels, and you thought, oh, that's a lot of hand drying towels, so that's going to end up somewhere. Or you did an outbound audit, which is, this is what we saw in the bathrooms. So that's the first thing. And in the recycling, you obviously will want to look for things that are not recyclable in your area, or organics. Nobody wants organics in the recyclable, or Kleenexes, because those are not recyclable. And organics, you want to look for recyclables in the organics and garbage in the organics. So you don't want those things in the waste, in the organic stream. So what's missing? Again, reuse, textiles, household hazardous, like waste, hazardous waste, waste electronics, large article furniture, white goods, those types of things. They may not circle a lot in your business, or they may circle a lot in your business. It all depends on what your business is, but those are the things that you may want to take into consideration, and as you're kind of analyzing your larger waste management kind of profile. Next slide, please. So in your analysis, you're looking for the top garbage in the recyclables, which means that you need to help people understand with more education that that is recyclable and not garbage. You need to look in you need to look at the top garbage in the recyclables to say, this is garbage, not recyclable. And in the garbage, you need to look at if there's recyclables and say, okay, that's a possible lost revenue, because if you may sell your recyclables, for example, if you sell cardboard, then if it's being found in the garbage, then you're losing that possible source of revenue. You want to look at your top recyclables in the garbage and figure out how to remove that from that garbage stream. Looking at costing, how much does it cost to remove your garbage? How much does it cost to manage your recycling and your organics? And how much it might cost for other opportunities, like putting in a hand dryer, like purchasing a composter or a small digester that can manage at your facility itself. Other concerns and opportunities that you may want to consider, the toxicity of products in your facility, and other types of things that you want to plan for. You may just want to identify what's in the waste so that you can actually make a plan for it in the future. So next slide, please. I'm almost at the end here. The most effective way to not create it in the first place, obviously. So help yourself to save some money, conserve some natural resources, and reduce greenhouse gas emissions by preventing waste and practicing 3 R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle. So this just shows you the most favorable option is to prevent, and the least favorable option is to dispose. And the measurement of how much greenhouse gas emissions and ultimately climate change impact is, top to bottom as well there. So recommendations, when you're setting up recommendations, this is what I would suggest to any business is set a goal, whether you want kilograms per day, if you know how much you're generating, or a diversion rate, whether you want to match it with what's happening in your local municipality, or whether you just want to set one for yourself, or whether you know of other businesses that have set diversion rates. Maximize reuse and diversion, minimize generation, and ultimately be fiscally responsible when you're doing all this and safe. You want to improve collection systems. Who collects? What do they collect? Do they know how to collect it? When do they collect it? And how is what is collected known, right? The signage, the training, and everything. That's all very, very important so that you can identify opportunities that may not be like immediate, but you could do like phasing of opportunities. So you can find alternatives to what's being used or generated, and possibly networking among other businesses for waste to treasure ideas, like chopsticks to other pieces, which we're going to hear from next. And obviously less toxic is beneficial as well. And that's it for me. I'm sorry for my internet all around, everybody.
Thank you, Laurie. I appreciate your patience. Everyone, welcome Alec Cooley, who's joining us all the way from North Carolina?
South Carolina, close.
So close. Alec Cooley has worked in the recycling industry for over 30 years. His career has included managing recycling and solid waste for Humboldt State University in California, working as a recycling director for the American organization Keep America Beautiful, and serving on the board of directors for multiple NGOs, including the National Recycling Coalition.
Great. I'll take it from there. Thank you for the introduction, Natalie, and for the opportunity to speak with you today. For those of you who are not familiar with Busch Systems, we're a manufacturer of recycling and waste bins based out of Barrie, Ontario. And as Natalie said, I'm the one person in the company who's based here in the US. And my role is to be kind of the resident expert within the company on how do you manage programs? How do you set them up for effective and will actually accomplish what you want them to do? And as I'm going to discuss in my presentation today, it's not always a straightforward proposition. This photo here I use as kind of my catch-all for all the things that could possibly go wrong in recycling. But this is emblematic of the fact that recycling is really a behavioral driven process. You can, unlike trash where you more or less set out a bin, and you can expect most people in most situations will do what a reasonable person does. They will use that bin the way you want them to. Recycling is much more complex. And even though we assume that it's educated people can follow basic directions, there's a lot of nuance to that. And so what I'm going to do with the time I have today is not so much talk about the operational logistics of how to set up collection programs, how to deal with equipment or with contracting service providers and all that. I really want to talk about how do you set up just that basic public facing side of your bin infrastructure and your arrangements to get people to intuitively do what you want them to do, to actually sort things in the correct way. So I could do an entire hour-long webinar just on behavior related to recycling, but I'm going to distill this down into one slide, 60 seconds, which is that, again, at the risk of oversimplifying it, recycling is there's several different elements to how we can influence behavior. The most obvious one is simply giving people the knowledge. You have to know what to recycle. You can't ask somebody to sort if they don't know what is supposed to go into which bin. So we need to be able to engage employees and others around that. we also have to give people a reason to recycle. Why should they make the effort to do that? And there's, again, a lot of nuance to that I'm not going to so much dwell on today, but to break that down to the most basic element, people need to know that their effort is contributing to something. They don't have to be deep environmentalists or be well versed in all the nuances of the positives. They simply need to know that if they're going to make an effort, it's going to contribute to something and be worth it. And then really, what I would argue is one of the biggest influences of how you get people to recycle is simply the habit. How do you get people to get into that routine and do it so that it just becomes an automatic action that we do no matter where we are, whatever we're doing. So once you're able, there are different techniques you can do to get people to do that. Things like social norming, get people to make a commitment, competition. There are a lot of these techniques that are used for engaging people. But all these can be for naught if you have a system, the actual interface that is hard to use. Because at the end of the day, people don't have that much of an attention span or time they want to dedicate to this. You need to make it quick and easy for them to participate. If it's not convenient, no matter how much somebody cares, they're simply not going to engage. And it's also important to know that the way many programs get set up, there's sort of an unintended consequence of setting up bins that confuse people. And once you introduce confusion, even if it's only takes 10 seconds to figure it out, you can lose people pretty quickly. So what I'm going to talk about is how do you avoid those barriers? How do you remove them so that people can simply do what you want them to do? I'm going to start out just talking primarily about just the basic design of your bins and how they're set up. And I'll start off by getting on to my soapbox, talking about just the basic form versus function, which of course this applies to any situation where you're involving architects or design. You want things to look nice, and that's a very reasonable thing, and it's a very achievable. It's very easy to get good, nice looking bins that are also effective and guide people to do what you want them to do. But I use these two photos here just to show on a very high level an example of what is going to help people to intuitively do what you want them to do and what causes people to have to stop and focus their attention. And if you go back to my last slide where I had the image of Homer Simpsons, I like to think of that as sort of the Homer syndrome of you're just not going to focus that much attention. You're going to use the first opening that your arm comes to when you're tossing something. With this bin on the left, you may or may not hit the right bin unless you're stopping to really focus and look and see the very small label that might be on the top of that bin. Most people are going to gloss right by it. So you want the bins to jump out. You want it to be very clear. This is for recycling. This is for waste. If you have a system set up for composting, et cetera, you need to be able to guide people who are only giving that half second of their attention. So there are a number of ways that we do that. I'm not going to go in depth into all the different studies that I have cited here, but on this and a couple of slides, I simply put these down just to underline that these aren't just sort of impressions or opinions. There is a lot of academic research that's gone into documenting what actually has a direct impact to cause people to sort things into the correct bin. And so a big primary one is just the color distinction. It's a visual prompt. It's getting people to just, without, again, having to stop and think about it, without having to read anything, just the basic understanding of there's a difference. These are not all the same type of bin that I'm about to interface with. And it gets people to slow down and use that. If you have just generic looking bins, people are more likely to treat them generically. Another one is the restrictive opening. This is important for a couple of reasons. One, it's just getting people to slow down long enough to actually focus their attention. If you have a wide open bin, people will do kind of the little basketball move and without having to focus their attention. If you have to negotiate a hole that size, you actually have to focus your attention. And once you do that, you're more likely to absorb, this is for recycling, or this is for trash, et cetera. And it's also, there's research that shows that simply seeing that round hole, again, is another prompt. It helps people, even without seeing a message, they associate that with recycling. So it works in two different ways. With signage, again, I could do a whole nother hour-long webinar just about how you design signage. And a lot of this will be situational, how much information you want to provide people, but at a very high level, in an on-the-go situation, if this is in a building lobby, if this is in a food court, a place where people are moving through, with that split second of people's attention, you don't have the opportunity to give them a long list of the 20 things that can go into that bin. If you attempt to do that, you will simply lose people's attention altogether. Their eyes will glaze over, and you won't even get inside the most core critical information. So you want, in that context, to have what is the very, very essential information they need to know. They need to know what bin is for what kinds of materials, cans of bottles, paper, whatever that would be. And then you might call out 2 or 3 of the most common types of materials that are likely to be found there to help people just sort of get basic rooted that it's not just recycling, it's specifically containers, cans and bottles. In an office situation, again, it's a little bit different of a dynamic. If people are at their desk side and they're using that same bin day in, day out, they can learn and absorb that information, and they're more likely to retain that and use that. So that's a context where you can give them more information. You can give them more of a detailed list than you would normally in just a public space like a food court. Images are very important. There's a lot of research that shows that not just the words, but also having an image that goes with that helps people. They're more likely to process and use that information correctly. What I love about this image here in the center is you can see there are actual shadow boxes. So if you have like a cafeteria or food court where you have very specific type of packaging, it's this brand of soft drink or potato chip that you serve, actually putting those packages in there helps people to process again faster and just immediately react to that without having to stop and think. So another big, I'll say it's a big hurdle to recycling, and this is true across the United States and even to an extent in Canada, although I think there's a better job that's done in Canada. But programs are designed locally. Each community sets up its own, in many cases, or your own business. You may put in your own bins and you may choose different colors, and that tends to create the system where people have to keep relearning what is recycling, what does it look like, what can go into that bin that may shift from one location to the next. And that all creates confusion and slows people down and adds to the problem of contamination that I think a lot of us are familiar with. The way you overcome that is to focus on how can we create more uniformity across our programs? How can we make things consistent so that people are not asked to constantly relearn what they're supposed to do? And I use this photo as an example of that stop sign. There's a reason that you don't go to different communities around the country and everybody creates their own design, because our local color is green and we like star shape. You want people to absorb and not have to rethink about that as you drive from one location to the next. The same principle applies here. So that might manifest in a number of different ways. One would be being familiar with whatever the dominant system is in your area. If your community has a 3-bin system and it is green, blue, and black in your office building or at your location, it behooves you to have bins that are going to be the same colors so that it's consistent from when people go from home to the office place or wherever that goes. You'll even see with these that they're using, at least in these two, these 3 photos here are all from San Francisco, and they use the exact same language. They use landfill, recycle, compost. So terminology, the more consistent you can make that, it serves the same focus, the same function. This image here is an example of when you think about back of house. However you set up your collection system with your housekeeping, that's another area where it pays to have a consistency and a uniformity. If you have housekeepers who don't have English as a first language, or if there's high turnover, and how do you train people on how to collect what bins get emptied into which systems, simply having an ad hoc of different types of bags, color carts, et cetera, is a missed opportunity to, again, create a consistency so that people intuitively know, housekeepers just know, it's in a blue bin, I pull out the blue bag, that blue bag goes in the blue cart goes into the blue dumpster. It's all about designing that intuitive system that does require a lot of thought. So here's another example of how we can influence people. Simply the types of bins, the shape. There's research that shows that can have a big impact on people's recycling behavior. And this is an example of a study that was done with an organization I worked with in the United States a few years back, Keep America Beautiful, where we went to 35 different office locations in 8 different cities across the US, and we did waste audits before and after to look at what type of bin specifically at a desk side in an office could change people's recycling behavior. And what we found is, it's important to have a recycling and a trash, both right there. But it was also, we found that using this style here, where you have a very small trash bin that just clips onto the side of a larger recycling, that improved recycling, as you can see here, up to between 13 and 29% at lower contamination, and it improved the amount that was recycled. We found that almost no paper ended up in the trash in the system. And all this comes down to just basic understanding of how people work. If you look at this photograph of this person here, most of what's being generated at a desk is recyclable. Most of it is paper. You're not necessarily focused on that as you're dropping an item. You're looking at your screen, you're looking at email. An 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper will not fit into a little bin that is half that size. You would actually have to concentrate to force it into that smaller trash. So people are intuitively going to recycle. So that's one example of how we can improve recycling just through the type of bins. Another big one is with a concept that's becoming more and more popular, but the whole idea of centralized collections. And this has a lot to do with housekeeping and how they do collection. If you send them into to each workstation and have them empty the trash, but not the recycling, you're telling people to take recycling out to the hallway bin, you can expect that on a basic convenience level, that's going to create a bias towards trash. I think many institutions have found that simply taking away that custodial service altogether, have people walk both their trash and the recycling to the bins that are around the central location, that can help to improve contamination and increase the amount that gets recycled. And I'm almost done with my time, so just one last thing I'll point to, or two last things. When you set up your bins, it's critical, and it's a basic pro tip. Make sure your trash and your recycling are immediately next to each other in every situation. Anytime you see a bin by itself, it doesn't matter if it is for trash or if it is for recycling, people will use it interchangeably. They will only make a distinction and sort if they're presented with that opportunity. And when I say put them next to each other, I mean immediately next to each other. This photo here showing that recycling and trash on opposite sides of a planter, while you think, that's close enough, people can walk 2 feet over. Well, if your direction of traffic is coming this direction, people may not even see that black bin until they passed it. And even if they see it, people oftentimes, they'll take one step out of the way, or they won't, they'll simply use whatever's there. So it's another critically important aspect. So that's a very high level talk about your infrastructure. And I don't have time, unfortunately, to go in depth into the actual engagement, but I would just point out that it is critically important to talk to your employees or whoever your audience is. Make sure they have that basic background knowledge. What is it that can be recycled? Where can it go? Any information they need to know. Looking for ways to engage them is important. There are programs out there. Here in the US, we have America Recycles Day. It's a public messaging campaign that is all about building that awareness, building motivation. And I know there are similar programs in Ontario and Canada. And because I want to hear more from our other speakers, I'm just going to stop there and hand it back. I will just point out that we have Busch Systems. We do a webinar series that I do roughly every other month, focus on these types of best practices. You'll see in the chat, we'll drop a link where you can learn more about that. And I'll pause and hand it back to Natalie.
Thank you so much, Alec. We do have a little bit of time for questions, but why don't we do it all afterward, just so make sure that we get everything in from Laurie and Scott. So if you're willing to hang out, Alec, that would be awesome.
Sure.
Awesome. Okay, so shall we try? Scott Anderson and Christina Garrels are the team behind Chop Value Toronto East, but they're right here in Peterborough. Both hail from Peterborough region, and they've spent time in the Pacific Northwest and the American Midwest, growing their family along the way. And now they're back where it all began and couldn't be more excited about what lies ahead for them with their new circular economy venture, Chop Value.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Let me just share my screen really quickly. So hello, everybody. I'll try to, oh, can everybody see my screen or no?
Not yet.
Okay. Natalie, would you mind sharing it? I seem to be having some problems with it.
Give me a second.
Do you have mine handy?
I do.
Oh, wait, hold on.
There you go.
There we go. Is that better?
I thought you might just have to try it again. Yep.
Okay, I'm just gonna shrink that. Bear with me. All right. So yeah, my presentation, I'll try to keep it brief for everybody. And hold on. No, it's, give me a hard time here. All right. Slideshow, there's what we want. Okay, so sorry, I'll try to keep things brief there if I can actually get to my screen. So now we're here, I'll keep it brief. So my presentation is going to be a little bit different in the fact of we are a new company here in Peterborough. Our name does indicate Toronto, but I'll get to that in a little bit of why that's the case. But we're here in Peterborough, we're in Pido Road, and we're going to talk a lot about how we're approaching waste from a value proposition. We really see gold in them there hills, and I'll talk to you a little bit briefly as far as what we're going to do and how we approach things. So first off, this is me and my family. My wife is on the far left. I'm really close as usual, and these are our two kids. So we've been grown up here in Peterborough. My wife is from Copaconk. This picture is actually from Rathburn Lake, just north of Anstruther, one of my favorite places in the world. So we do have local bona fides, so that's why I'm proving it to everybody. But first off, how we're approaching things, we see value in waste, and specifically with the humble chopstick. So the way the company works, we're actually a franchise. It was started in Vancouver. We're the first one located in the Toronto area in Ontario. And we're the fourth franchise in the system. So there's one in Calgary, there's one in Singapore, and obviously Vancouver, and now us. So if you look at chopsticks, they're an interesting piece. So there's 1.5 billion chopsticks disposed of worldwide per week. Especially here in North America, most travel thousands of kilometers for a single use, we guess 20 minutes, and then straight to the landfill. We think it's time to give the humble chopstick a second life. So Laurie talked about this in her presentation. Alec touched on it as well, but we believe deeply in a circular economy. We throw away things as a society really quick, and we don't think if there's any value left in what we throw away. So we've made it our mission to operate within a circular economy and show that a profitable business can emerge from the waste cycle system. So what do? This is our concept, and it's really straightforward. We literally go around to restaurants once a week and we collect used chopsticks from them. We have a bin that sits in their kitchens. The kitchen staff separate the chopsticks on the cleanup. We have staff who go around with our little truck. We pick up the chopsticks once a week. We bring them back here to Peterborough, where we have what's called a microfactory. And the way the system works, we're a series of microfactories. And that brings in more into the waste, or excuse me, it ties into the waste discussion, because the reason we have microfactories, we can set up close to collection. So in other words, we're not collecting it and then shipping it somewhere. It's essentially coming to a local manufacturer. So we're the ones in Toronto who are doing this. And then from there, we actually fabricate the product and give these chopsticks a second life. Really quickly, our process is we collected, we sort them. That's the second shaker table, sort table. We dip them in an environmentally friendly water-based resin. We spread it on this big tray like a baker does, and we dry them for 10 hours. At that point, it says 5 hours on my slide, but that's wrong, 10 hours. And then, so that takes any bacteria away, cleans them. We bang them and loosen them up and weigh them. And then we put them in a big press and essentially press them at high heat and pressure and create what I refer to as our raw material, which is a tile. And from there, we upcycle them, we create products. And I'm going to show you a few of those products now. So this is our raw material. You see it up close here. We call it a new and innovative high performance material for commercial and residential spaces made entirely from recycled chopsticks. It has the strength, because chopsticks are made of bamboo, it has the strength of somewhere between oak and maple. It machines just like regular wood product. It's built to last, and really you can use this in any application. We tend to use it heavily in our architectural work, including some paneling, home decor, furniture, tables, cutting boards, serving tray, coasters, desk lamps, whatever you can think you can create with a wood product, you can do with our raw material. We do with our raw material. So as an example, here's some of the places we play. So these are real products that we have in the universe right now and being sold nationally and internationally in some cases. So we exist really in the retail space. Hudson Bay carries our product right now. Nordstrom's carries our product. We tend to be a higher end decor product. So as you can see, especially in the middle panel, those would be some coasters, cutting boards, wall decor pieces that we do, and we merchandise and brand them as well. We also work in interior. So I was up in April in the interior design show in Toronto, where we were talking with hundreds of architects and designers on how we can work this product into some of their unique designs. One of the favorites is on my right, which is a stair inlay that was done in Vancouver with our product. That's our product on the stair inlay. Same with the desk that you see on your left-hand side. With the rise of COVID, we made significant inroads into the home office space. So the desk in the front of the screen actually is a partnership we do with a company called Effie Desk. They create the legs, which is a fully adjustable standing desk and sitting desk that we create the environmentally friendly, sustainable piece. The shelves are ours as well, and the metal is actually even reclaimed on those shelves. We work in the corporate space, so we've done office build outs. Most of these are done on the West Coast as of now, but we're working heavily to try to get similar markets here in Toronto. And then we do a lot of work also in the cafe space, both at home and in retail spaces. So we do tons of small pieces like charcuterie boards, and Air Canada has a very high-end restaurant in Pearson, and we provide all the cutting boards and coasters in that facility as well. In some of the restaurants, these pictures you see here are from restaurants we actually collect chopsticks from. So it's truly circular in the fact that they're giving the chopsticks and we're turning it into tables for them. We feel that being part of the circular economy should be the norm, and what we're trying to do is build a profitable business using reclaimed products. And these are not new chopsticks in any sense. Our place smells like soy sauce in here. So where are we going long term? So as I said, we're early days with regards to the franchise, but obviously North America, its Chop Value is originated in Vancouver. It's Vancouver's Canadian company. We're reaching into the States. We've just signed a deal with Mexico. UK is about to bring 10 microfactories on board. Singapore is about to bring 3. We're working heavily trying to get into Japan, China, etc., where the amount of chopsticks in those systems would be massive, even compared to North America. And so far the impact has been, this slide's a little bit dated, but as an example, Vancouver, who's been at this a bit longer than us, they collect from 500 stores per week and in the neighborhood of 1,000 kilograms per week of used chopsticks, and they process those into other products. We're at about 150 to 200 kilograms a week right now that we're bringing into our facility. And as Natalie had mentioned earlier, we're early days. We're just getting our production set up here in town. So we're mostly focused on the collection right now, but we're about to pivot into the production side as well. These are some of our corporate partners that you see, some pretty big players. And we hope with the advent of getting into the Toronto market, we're actually going to get more into the head office spaces and start distributing. So that's a little, I hopefully ran through that really quick for everybody, just to respect everybody's time. But that's what we do, and we really see a value in the waste stream. And we really hope that the chopsticks are really the tip of the iceberg with regards to bringing value into stuff that people just throw away. So thanks very much for listening. I'd love to, this is my information. Feel free to give me a call, or sorry, in this case, it's email me. I'm happy to share my phone number too. But give me a call. I'm happy to look at opportunities, work with people from a partnership standpoint, both retail and design wise. But yeah, we're really excited about what we can do with this product. So thanks very much for listening.
Thank you very much. Oh my goodness. Okay, so those of you who are still here, if you have any questions for our speakers, I'm sure they would love, you know, a couple of fun inquiries. Maybe we'll keep it fast, keep it quick. But does anyone have any questions for Scott, Alec, or Laurie? You can just shout them out or raise your hand. Well, I'm excited about all of your presentations, and I'm very grateful for you being here. Jackie, do you have a question?
No, I have a point, and that is that as far as auditing is concerned, I had the opportunity to audit with Laurie many years back, and it really is an informative process. And at that time, I think we audited a high school, and so it is. Not only is it really fascinating to see what people are throwing out, but it's also really easy to do. And so Green Economy Peterborough, we have cobbled together some sort of auditing little kits. So basically you just fill in the blanks. And so you should let us know if you would like us to provide those to you. And again, it's really interesting, and you can just get staff to do it.
If you
for yourselves, you know, don't make staff do it, but see if they want to volunteer. It is really interesting.
Great engagement opportunity for sure. Okay.
I would add that knowing, being able to talk about what's in the waste stream and even what happens to it are both very valuable for engaging people in terms of getting people to participate. The more we can take it from it all gets thrown away, it goes away to some abstract to concrete, this is what's happening, this is your role in it. Those are all things that help to build that people's commitment to recycling.
And photos that go along with it are really helpful too. It's like, you know, like you're implying it doesn't just get hidden away. Here's what's there and maybe shouldn't have been, kind of discussions going.
Christy, question?
Just a quick question for Scott. I haven't had an exhaustive opportunity to look at your website in the 7 minutes since you started speaking. I'm wondering if you have large format paneling rather than wall tiles for actual, for wall aesthetics or acoustics, if you're doing anything kind of larger.
Yeah, so we do installations that are larger. Part of our manufacture process, the actual tiles we make have a limit as far as the size go of basically 8-inch tiles, 8-inch square tiles. And so from there, what we do, we've done full 2-story wall installations, but they're typically made up of a tile structure. So I'm not sure if you're looking for a 4x8 panel or something to that level, but no, we have done that. We've done what we call a zero waste one, which is essentially a series of almost blocks that we've installed for like acoustic paneling, essentially within spaces as well.
Okay, and how do they attach to the wall?
I'm sorry?
How do they attach to the wall? So if you're mounting them on drywall, how do they?
So there's a couple of pieces. We can either work with the installer, or what we typically do is install them on a substrate and then come work with somebody and do the
substrate.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
We do substrate. But yeah, we do a lot of, and I'm happy to. We have other pictures. Some of it's on the website as well, but we have other pictures as well that I'm happy to show you some of the projects that we've worked on.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah,
thanks.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
I have a question, Scott, from Laurie. She's wondering if they continue to be circular, like once the desks are finished using, have they figured out a process yet to again recycle them?
Recycling, no, unfortunately, not to a great degree. So we do have, because we do the fabrication ourselves as well, we have worked with clients that have damaged them or something to that degree, and we actually bring them back and we'll fix them up because we are fabricators as well in that case, which is helpful. But as far as a formal process to bring them back in the system and reprocess them, that's a little tough because once we apply the resin and cook them, it's hard to get that life back in them once they've been overcooked, so to speak. Yeah.
They look like they last a long time though.
Yes, yes. I should have led with that, yes.
Okay, I'm cognizant of everybody's time, and I appreciate you all for hanging on for the little bit of a rough ride we've had, typical of Peterborough in the last few weeks. So with that, I just want to thank you, all of our special guests and our attendees. It's been a pleasure to see all the interest in this topic. I'm going to send out a follow-up survey. I'm going to send out a recording once we maybe edit it down a little for length. And as always, you can connect with me directly by email if you are looking for any pieces or more information from our speakers today. And you can always visit greeneconomypeterborough.ca to learn more about all of the work we do.